Even though we only generated 30% of the revenue that we did in 2019, we were able to avoid bankruptcy, and a lot of people in 2020, they had to file for bankruptcy and completely shut down their businesses. So hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and today I'm going to be sharing with you the top 10 reasons 2020 was great. 2020 was a terrible year for most people, myself included. However, I'm the type of person that likes to focus on the positive side of things. So rather than focusing on all the bad that happened in 2020, I decided to focus on some of the things that I was grateful for, because as bad as 2020 was, there were definitely some really positive things that happened in my life. And for you yourself, this is going to be a great exercise. Rather than focusing on all the bad stuff that happened to you last year, try to pick out some of the positive things, because as bad as 2020 was, if you look hard enough, there are definitely going to be a lot of things that you can pick away that you are grateful for, which is why today I'm going to be sharing with you the top 10 reasons 2020 was great. The number one reason 2020 was great was that one of my fighters headlined a UFC Fight Pass card. For those of you that have been following me for a while, you know that I work with a lot of professional athletes and predominantly fighters. A lot of the fighters that I work with also happen to be professional boxers, and one of my fighters, Steve Rolls, he's been working with me now for over a couple of years, and he originally came to me when he got the call. He was going to be headlining Madison Square Garden. It was going to be the biggest fight of his life. So he ended up coming to me, and at the time, he was coming to me for therapeutic purposes. He had issues with hips and knees, and I was taking care of his fascial stretch therapy. Now, if we fast forward, after his fight at Madison Square Garden, he decided that he wanted to take his training a little bit more seriously, so he ended up hiring me to do his strength and conditioning along with his fascial stretch therapy, and the outcome was absolutely amazing. His strength went through the roof, his endurance was at its absolute best, and he ended up winning the UFC Fight Pass card by knocking the guy out in the fourth round. In terms of his actual training, I'm going to include a link right up over here to some of the training that we did in the lead up to that fight. But basically, we ended up periodizing a program between July all the way up until January, which was the fight. And one thing worth noting is that fight was an absolute nightmare to actually program for, because the date kept getting switched on us. It moved from October to late December to early December to mid-December, and then we finally ended up settling on late January, which was the actual date of the fight. But overall, he ended up headlining a UFC Fight Pass card, and he ended up winning that fight, which ended up improving his record to 20-1. So overall, 2020 started out really great, as that happened in January. The number two reason 2020 was great was that one of my fighters was the main event of a major boxing event in Toronto. Another one of my fighters is Nick Fantuzzi, and for those of you who do not know who he is, I'm going to include a link right up over here. You could watch us working out together. That is not part of his actual training program. He just wanted to kind of jump in and do my leg training workout that I was doing at that particular time. But anyway, he ended up headlining a main event of a boxing match, and he ended up winning, and he ended up improving his record to 10-0. Nick Fantuzzi, he is the Golden Gloves boxing champion, and he's also been working with me for a couple years. This last year, though, we started getting a little bit more serious with regard to training. Same situation with regard to Steve Rolls. Nick Fantuzzi actually came to me first, and he was the one that introduced me and recommended Steve come see me, and we started out just doing fascial stretch therapy. We didn't really do any training, but then after a few months of just doing the fascial stretch therapy, he really started taking his training a lot more seriously, and we ended up doing a lot more training in the lead up to that main event that he ended up fighting, and he ended up winning. So overall, it was a great start of the year for myself, Steve Rolls, and also for Nick Fantuzzi. The number three reason 2020 was great was that one of my fighters finally got the call up to the UFC and made his UFC debut. The one caveat to this is it was a short notice fight, and he had to go up in weight. So he was going up in weight on short notice, although it was at UFC Fight Island. For those of you who don't know, UFC ended up procuring an island where they are holding all of their fights, and he was one of the first people to actually perform on UFC Fight Island. The fight did not go his way because, again, it was short notice, and he was not able to get in the proper amount of training, and also he did have to go up in weight. However, he was able to get his call, and it did get his foot into the door to the UFC, and because his foot is in the door, he is now signed with them. So overall, it was a great year for him, despite the fact that the outcome was not quite what he wanted. The number four reason 2020 was great is that I broke a Guinness World Record. Well, not really, but I mean, I kind of unofficially broke one. Early last year, what happened was Browney ended up setting a 30-second world record push-up. He did it by accomplishing 53 push-ups in 30 seconds, and then there were a couple other YouTubers that also tried to attempt it. Simon Miller ended up attempting it. He got 51 in 30 seconds, and then Greg Doucette actually beat Browney by accomplishing 56 push-ups in 30 seconds. I decided to give it a try because it seemed fun, and I was able to get 57 push-ups in 30 seconds. I'm going to include a link right up over here to that challenge video if you guys want to try it out yourself, but it was a fun video. My form definitely was not the greatest, grace because when I try to do push-ups for speed, my form kind of goes out the window. But overall, it was a fun challenge, and I was able to successfully beat all 3 of those people, even though the record currently does not stand because Browney has gone on to beat the 57 push-ups. But anyway, let's get on to the next point. The number 5 reason 2020 was great was that I completed Simon Miller's 100 rep squat challenge. For those of you who are not familiar with the 100 rep squat challenge, essentially what you have to do is you take an Olympic bar, so your standard 45-pound bar, you put it on your back, and then you have to do 100 repetitions in 100 seconds. I ended up accepting the challenge. I completed it, and it took me 101 seconds to get 100 repetitions in. The first 99 I got in right as the 100 seconds were expiring, and then the last one just as time was expiring. But I still count that as a win, and it was a really fun challenge. If you guys do want to try that challenge, take an Olympic barbell. You're going to do a full squat, and you're going to try and do 100 repetitions in 100 seconds. The number 6 reason 2020 was great was that I set a new deadlift PR. When it comes to deadlifting, this was not a 1 repetition maximum PR. However, this was a body weight PR, and the record that I ended up setting, it has always been one of my goals to be able to do twice my body weight for 20 repetitions. So back in, I believe it was May, I ended up accomplishing that goal, and I did it by deadlifting 315 pounds for 20 repetitions while weighing 157 pounds. With regard to this lift, this was actually fairly easy. I thought that it was going to be a lot more difficult, and I had stopped at 20 repetitions, but if you watch the video, which I'm going to include a link right up over here if you want to watch my deadlift PR, then you can see that once I got to 20 repetitions, I easily could have done another 2 to 3 repetitions because the 20th one felt pretty comfortable. But overall, it was my goal to hit twice my body weight for 20 repetitions, and I succeeded at that. So once I hit the 20, I just called it quits because I had no real reason to continue going any further. Now, the number 7 reason 2020 was great was that I set a new 1-arm barbell row PR. I am going to include a link right up over here to my challenge video. It was a bodyweight 1-arm barbell row challenge, and the way that the challenge worked is you have to take your body weight, put it on an Olympic barbell, and you are going to do a barbell row, a bent over barbell row 1 arm for 6 repetitions. You will then immediately cut the weight in half and go into a 20 repetition 1-arm dumbbell row without resting for too long. You had to rest for less than 5 seconds. And a couple other requirements. Number 1, no straps allowed. Number 2, you were not allowed to use any type of help, and it had to be an Olympic barbell and then followed by a dumbbell. And with regard to this challenge, I just thought it would be something that's really fun. I've always been really good at pulling, and I'm really good at things like 1-arm pull-ups and just chin-ups, pull-ups in general. So I decided to make up my own challenge after doing the Greg Doucette, Simon Miller, and Browney's challenge because everybody was issuing challenges. Why not make up my own? And if you guys want to try it, it's a really, really fun challenge. Whatever your body weight is, try and put that on an Olympic barbell. You are going to do a 1-arm barbell row for 6 repetitions, cut the weight in half, and then do 20 repetitions with a dumbbell. The number 8 reason 2020 was great was that I set a new 1 rep max 1-arm barbell row PR. While I was getting into the whole 1-arm barbell row challenges, I decided that I wanted to just kind of see how much I could lift for 1 repetition, and my goal was to lift 225 pounds, and I succeeded at that. The form was not very pretty, the technique was definitely not amazing, but I was happy that I was able just to get it off the ground. I ended up doing 2 repetitions with 225 for the 1-arm barbell row. The first one was very, very poor. I did not get it very high at all. The second one, I was able to get my elbow at 90 degrees, so I counted that as a successful attempt. For this one, I did need some straps. Usually, I do not use lifting straps because I'm not a fan. I prefer to just use chalk, but for the purposes of this particular challenge, I just wanted to see how much could I lift one time, and I succeeded at that by doing my 225-pound 1-arm barbell row. In the future, this is my 2021 goal. I would like to do a 1.5 time body weight 1-arm barbell row, and for me to do that right now, I weigh about 156 pounds, so I'm looking at about 240 to 250 pounds that I'm going to be attempting this year. Watch out for that. If I accomplish it, I'll be posting it in the near future. If I don't accomplish it, let's just pretend that I never mentioned it because I don't want you guys to know. Anyway, the number 9 reason 2020 was great was that I found a new training partner. That's right. I ended up meeting my new training partner, Johnny Bones. For those of you that have been following my assessment series, you know that I've been using Boner, or Johnny Bones as his legal birth name, in my assessment videos. With regard to this particular point right over here, Ever since I got into holistic health, one of the things that I always wanted to get, but I never had, was a life-size skeleton. I started as a personal trainer back in 2004, and then in 2009, 2010 was when I made the transition to becoming a holistic health coach once I had my own issues with ulcerative colitis. And ever since then, it's always been one of my main things that I wanted to do. I wanted to get a life-size skeleton. And this year, I finally decided to spend the money, drop it, and buy a life-size skeleton. And Johnny Bones and I are going to be doing a lot of assessment videos in the future. We've already done 3 assessments. We did a general assessment for the entire body. We did a hip assessment, specifically an orthopedic hip assessment that involved the Faber test, aka Patrick's test, aka the Figure 4 test. And then just a couple days ago, we ended up releasing another orthopedic hip assessment with the Thomas test, Eli's test, and Ober's test. So if you are a personal trainer, if you are a manual therapist, a physical therapist, a physiotherapist, and you need to brush up on your assessment skills, or if you are a student in any one of those particular fields, then definitely check out those videos, as you can use them to help study during your actual schooling. And finally, the number 10 reason that 2020 was great was that I avoided bankruptcy. As bad as 2020 was, even though we took a massive hit, we ended up making about 30% of the gross revenue that we were able to generate in 2019. However, even though we only generated 30% of the revenue that we did in 2019, we were able to avoid bankruptcy. And a lot of people in 2020, they had to file for bankruptcy and completely shut down their businesses. So even though we ended up taking a huge cut in terms of our revenue, we were able to stay open. And I'm filming this right now in my studio, so I am still grateful that I was able to maintain this roof over my head right now and make these great videos for you guys. With regard to the actual studio itself, because of the different services that I offer, we have been listed as an essential service. So that is another thing that I'm grateful for. We haven't had to shut down because most of what I do is not personal training. 80% of what I do is either physiotherapy, fascial stretch therapy, and then the remaining 20% is going to be personal training. But for the most part, most of what we do over here is therapy related and just helping people get out of pain. So luckily, we were able to stay open and be considered an essential service. And because of that, we were able to avoid bankruptcy. So even though it was a terrible, terrible year, these are just 10 of the things that I'm absolutely grateful for that happened in 2020. If you enjoyed this, be sure to smash that like button so I know to make more of these types of videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, as I will be uploading new videos every single day. That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again tomorrow.